and welcome to the second hour, folks, here on the Grass Wagon Revival. As promised, we have the fiddling sensation, Austin Scelzo, I believe from the great state of Connecticut, with us today as our special guest. How are you doing today, Austin?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much, Deano. Yes, the bluegrass epicenter of Connecticut up here.
Unbelievable. When I found that out, I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Connecticut?
Yeah, it is funny, but it's certainly not known for its bluegrass music. But it is a very close place to New York and Boston, and as you're probably familiar, the Boston scene with Berklee College of Music and all its rich history, and
absolutely,
and actually even New Haven used to be the an epicenter for Bill Monroe played in Connecticut. When he was going from New York to Boston, so it's been a place that has some history.
Yeah, and just let me say, go Sox, right?
I won't get into that.
So good to have you with us today. Really, Fiddler Sensation, I think, was pretty spot on. Your work is excellent, Austin. And in reading your bio, bro, you had me at Berklee. I mean, you did. I absolutely love great music, and I really, really love young people who are ushering in their twist on bluegrass, on Americana, on acoustic music. You're doing a great job. I've got several songs lined up here to play of yours, but for the listener who has no idea, and also, did I pronounce your last name correctly? Scelzo?
Yeah, that's right.
Austin, tell us where you've been. Tell us what you've been doing, and we're going to get into some of these songs. But for the listener that has no idea who you are, tell us who you are.
Well, sure. I did not grow up around bluegrass or country music, but I always wanted to play and teach music. My family came from a line of teachers, school teachers, and so I went to school to study music education, and that's when I started getting invited to bluegrass festivals. Gray Fox was my first ever, the summer of my freshman year, and that just set this whole journey for me. It started, my love for the music, and it grew throughout college as I was studying to be a teacher, and continued to grow even when I got my first job teaching public school. I was an orchestra teacher in the Darien public schools. But that love grew so great that at some point I really wanted to put my full energy into building up community around the music and performing it and taking it to new places. And so just 2 years ago, I stepped down from that public school teaching position to play more music, record more music, write more music, but also to bring my background in education to the Northeast and teach the music around this area.
That's great. And is it true you launched the Connecticut Bluegrass Music Association?
Well, that's right. There used to be iterations of it in the past that existed, a website that sort of had the material, but it had sort of since fizzled out, and it was one of the only states up in the Northeast here that didn't have a thriving bluegrass organization. And so when I quit my job, I set out to help people get connected in the area, and I've used the Connecticut Bluegrass Association as a means of helping new people get into the fold, in ways that I wish I would have known about all the, beautiful things going on in and around Connecticut. So it's been a good joy to share that with people.
Well, tell me about your connection with IBMA, your work, your performing, serving the bluegrass community there. Are you connected with the leadership bluegrass of IBMA?
Yes, very much so. So my first IBMA was actually, the World of Bluegrass Conference 3 years ago with the Rock Hearts, and we were showcasing. I didn't know what to expect. I was totally blown away, and I had amazing times jamming that year. But I've since really, just resonated very deeply with the message and the mission of IBMA, and I've connected in a number of ways. I've done the Leadership Bluegrass program last year, which was the greatest thing you could do for your bluegrass career. If anyone's thinking about doing it, I can't say highly enough about that program. But I also worked with the foundation, the IBMA Foundation, because I was a school teacher, and I connected with some other musicians who had, brought bluegrass music to the school systems. And so that's a big part of the work that I do now as well.
Yeah, that's great. And you were nominated for the IBMA Mentor of the Year in 2023. Congratulations on that nomination.
Thank you so much. It was a huge honor to be received so positively. This whole time I've been, the short journey I've been on in bluegrass music, I've just felt so accepted and valued as for my individual strengths. So that was a real honor. Welcome.
Now, when you say short journey, what year did you crank it up and go, you know what, I'm going to start playing. I'm going to, and let me ask you the difference between violin and fiddle, but what year did you say, hey, I'm getting into this bluegrass thing?
Well, it was, the spark, I think, began in late high school when I went to a summer program. It was a week-long program at Berkeley. And that just opened my eyes to the fact that you could do something on the violin that wasn't classical music. I mean, my background was just kind of school orchestra and kind of private lessons and things like that. So that opened the world for me. And then the love just grew from there. I think going to bluegrass festivals and falling in love with the community. And also because I always loved singing, it was a kind of perfect blend for me. So, I've been playing and getting into bluegrass and country music, a little bit more seriously in college. And then, I took the deep dive just 2 years ago when I left my job.
Well, welcome to the deep end of the pool here.
Thanks. Thank you very much.
Now, let me ask you, tongue in cheek, of course, what is the difference between a violin and a fiddle?
Well, the best answer we usually give people up here in the North is that a fiddle is a violin with a Southern accent.
There you go. And I'm definitely not picking up on your Southern accent at all.
Yeah, I don't share much of it myself. No.
You referenced
I can convince people with my fiddling.
You referenced jamming earlier. Do you prefer? I don't know you personally. I'm getting to know your music more and more each day. Do you prefer jamming or in the studio recording?
I honestly love jamming. I love creating communities. I host a jamming weekend up at the Ashokan Center here, and it's called Jamuary. It's in January, and
clever!
I just love the community around it. And Pete Wernick's a big mentor of mine, and he has these Wernick method teaching classes where you teach people how to jam. And it's kind of getting people out of their just hiding in their bedrooms, strumming chords and playing real music with other people. It's a huge joy of mine to jam and also to create community. A big part of what I do with the Connecticut Bluegrass Association is organize jams and get people to come from all around to hang out and have fun. So
that's great. Did we just invent a new hashtag, Jamuary?
I wouldn't be sad if it went viral.
And sometimes I think maybe you and I may be the only two folks in bluegrass that know what a hashtag is.
Yeah, man. It's a good thing to know.
In your showcasing at IBMA, you've met some great musicians. Tell me about twin fiddling with the great Michael Cleveland. What is that like?
Yeah, I mean, as a person who's felt like an outsider for a long time, it felt like a total dream, but also terrifying. Just being in the presence of who I believe to be, the greatest, bluegrass fiddler today, right now. I mean, he's just incredible.
Really?
But, he's a
Pause for a minute, because I was going to ask you that, and it's okay. It's off the record. Nobody's listening but just you and I. This is just going to stay right between us, Austin. Who is seriously, can we pinpoint the greatest fiddler of our day right now? I mean, is it possible? There's some great ones.
Yeah. So I can, in full faith, say, as a person who is, just creative and artistic minded, that it's impossible to say that, because I think everybody has their strengths, everybody has their sound. Yeah. when I think of, if you were to say, who does bluegrass fiddling best? I mean, that's a little bit easier of a question than who's the best fiddler or whatever. But to me, I mean, to be a bluegrass fiddler, it requires being, creative and inventive, but it also means honoring the generations of fiddlers that came before you. And one of the things I love about Michael Cleveland is, when we started becoming friends, he would share these playlists or drop boxes of just all these first and second generation fiddlers that he's just absorbed the language from. And so he's just, to me, is just a perfect example of a person who loves, creating new things and just falls in love with the sound of the fiddle. But, he's also spent tons of time honoring every great bluegrass fiddler before him.
Yeah. And I was not in any way disagreeing with you earlier about Michael Cleveland. I mean, but when you hear so many fiddlers today, even the ones that I work with in Nashville, I've done some Mountain Sounds songs. I had Andy Leftwich sitting right there beside me in the studio, and you say a word, you use an adjective, and man, he just plays it. I mean, Andy is just like, wow. And then Wanda Vic Birchfield, who just accepted a membership as a staff musician on the Grand Ole Opry, a multi-instrumentalist. I mean, you say a word, hey, give me this lick, give me that, and they just nail it and they deliver it. And then I was able to cut 15 songs back in May with Aubrey Haney, who Aubrey has played with everybody. And what's funny, Austin, when I got to listening to these rough mixes, I hear these licks he's doing on my record that I hear on some of the classic country and bluegrass songs. It's amazing.
Well, that's a great sign. That's when a person really, really deeply loves the music, just the broad entity of bluegrass music. And that's certainly where I am. And it's for new people to the music. Sometimes it's the newer stuff that gets them in the door. But I think people who really, really deeply love it, they get into that early stuff.
And don't you think it would behoove all the young musicians to learn the history, and you mentioned the word language or lingo, to be able to just drop a word and go, let's do it like this, let's do this. Because I find in songwriting, I can write with a 22-year-old and say, take me back to Mayberry. And they go, where? Huh? Where? And I'm like, the Andy Griffith Show. Or put your finger on that rotary dial and call me anytime. They don't know what a rotary dial phone is, So the younger generation, right? The younger generation, where they bring all the talent, all the energy, all the creative juices. It would be great if they bring the full package, and that always is going to include history. Would you agree with that?
Well, I absolutely agree. I think it helps in communicating, communicating the different sounds that we can, point throughout the bluegrass music sort of evolution as a sound. And I think it also helps with the community building, the jamming aspect of it. There's something to be said for, being able to count on going to a bluegrass jam, and you can count on people knowing Flat and Scruggs and Bill Monroe and the Bluegrass Boys. Those songs are just such a part of the canon of what's, the community that's created in the music. And that's why a large part of, my repertoire is, in terms of songs I know for jams are from that first and second generation.
Absolutely. As a singer, I'm a singer. I like the art of playing in between the words, playing in the gaps, in the holes, not playing on top of the lyric. That's one thing that the Nashville pickers have mastered. And the phrase less is more always comes into play there. But sometimes you get a jammer who's playing the bluegrass standards. There's, the juices are flowing. You're just sizzling. The fiddle is on fire, and it's just continuous phrasing. Which do you enjoy doing more than the other? Playing with a singer, playing in between the lyrics, in between the phrases, or doing a full-fledged instrumental?
Oh, well, I certainly, as a singer myself, and as a person who cares deeply about lyrics, which is not always the case for people who get into bluegrass music.
You're right.
You know, I think it really influences my own playing as a fiddler to be a singer, you know, and I think a lot of the great instrumentalists either were singers themselves or have a strong respect for lyrics in this music. And so I definitely prefer that. I think there's a time and place for pure fun and you know, maybe if it's a y'all come kind of vibe and song or whatever, you know, there might be a place for that. But my preference for sure is to complement the lyrics.
Well, I'm sure having some pure fun right now. Let me tell you, the first time that I heard of you, and some people think I live under a rock, which they may be true. That may be true. I had a song floating around. I still do. I Want to Grow Old with You. And somebody said, oh, that's my favorite. And then they said, but you better watch out because Austin Scelzo's song, Second Fiddle Blues, is right now right on your tail. And I'm like, oh, let me check this song out. And man, incredible. Will you set it up for us? Tell us how this song came about. I'm a liner note nerd. Tell me where you cut it, who all's on it. I want to play Second Fiddle Blues for our listeners.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about this song. It's something that was co-written, actually, myself and my bandmate from the Rock Hearts, Alex McLeod. We had written that song essentially over the phone at a rather unfortunate event or circumstance, as many good country songs, you know, where they start, you know, in a difficult place. But it you know, the words that made the final iteration of the song that you hear were word for word phrases that were spoken over a phone call. It was the most kind of natural songwriting process that I've ever been in. And, you know, we of course revised and revisited it and changed the melody around and things like that. But I really deeply connected to the song and the story in a way that made me feel like it needed to be recorded now. You know, it was one of those, I need to capture this moment in time. And so I was doing some, you know, in some ways soul searching. I spent just over a month in Nashville around February. And well, actually, I'm skipping one thing. I'd met Vicki Vaughn that summer. She's the harmony singer on the track and also playing bass. I met her. She plays with Della Mae and High Fidelity Bluegrass. And I met her in the summer at the Ashokan Bluegrass Camp. We were kind of co-teaching, and you know, we would get breakfast in the morning, and I'd be singing a Louvin Brothers song, and she'd come in right on that, you know, second part there. And we just bonded very quickly and deeply over our mutual love for just sappy country music.
Yeah.
And, you know, I just had that in mind that, one day when she lives in Nashville, I said, when I'm in Nashville, I'm going to call her up and see if we can get something together. So now we fast forward, I'm in Nashville, and I am staying with a buddy of mine from college who actually went to school in Connecticut. He moved down there to be a recording engineer. His name is Christian Mortera, or his nickname is Herbie, and good, you know, just reconnected with him, was staying in his studio, and he really was the one to encourage me. You should record this now. Like, you should record this here with me. Yeah. And so with his encouragement, I called up Vicki. Vicki did an amazing job on the song, you know, singing and playing. And I just, you know, I recorded the triple fiddle and the guitar and all that. And I said, I really want this to shine as a classic country song. Vicki, do you know any, you know, pedal steel players? Because it's got a real slow tempo to it. So pedal steel would have been the perfect instrument. And I just totally trusted Vicki. She mentioned this guy I've never met.
Well, you were in the right town for pedal steel guitar.
Yes, I actually ran into him in person.
Who's playing steel on it?
But yeah, that's Mike Drassler.
Okay.
Drassler. So he's a real active, you know, just killer multi-instrumentalist in Nashville. You know, he posts all his work on Instagram and things like that. I think it's called Drass Sounds, Drass Sounds. But yeah, check out his stuff. I mean, he's just one of those multi-instrumentalist guys that, just like you mentioned, that if you've got a feeling that you want to be captured, and he just executes on it. And he laid down maybe, you know, 4 or 5 solos and you know, and of course fills throughout the song. And and we listened to it together and found our favorites or whatever. I'm just so pleased with the way the song came out. And I couldn't be more grateful for the way it's being received. I think it's just a true testament to kind of like, the power of authenticity in the country music world. If people can sense a real song.
Yeah, man. And it's floating around rather nicely all over the charts. I'm going to play it for our listeners right now. Here's Austin Scelzo, Second Fiddle Blues. I know you're going to love it.
I told her that I loved her. She said, I love you too. I could tell she didn't know the love that I was referring to. Then she asked me for some music. I didn't know what to say about playing second fiddle on her wedding day. I watched as they held hands. Everything seemed so gay, but deep inside my world was ending, so I turned my eyes away, and I did the only thing my broken heart told me to do. I rosined up my bow and played the second fiddle blues. So I turned my eyes away, and I did the only thing my broken heart told me to do. I rosined up my bow and played the second fiddle blues.
Second Fiddle Blues right here on the Grass Wagon Revival with our special guest today, Austin Scelzo. That's a lovely tune, great creative lyrics, and great production.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
It's amazing. Seriously, we have a superhero with us today. I read where Bluegrass Today named you, Austin, as the Connecticut arts hero. That was the word they used.
Yeah, it's a recent. I'm very honored. It's a recent award that the Connecticut government has given, and there's an award ceremony about a month from now at the state capitol. And I'll be there. It's a big win for bluegrass music because I'll be there representing, my work in the bluegrass music world here and talking about the Connecticut Bluegrass Association. I think it will really be a helpful position to be in, just to kind of continually to build up the community and make some vision happen.
Yeah, man, keep bringing the fire. I mean, I know you joined. Now, when did you join Rock Hearts?
Rock Hearts was exactly when I quit my job. That summer was that summer I 2 years ago was my first summer with them and my first real, bluegrass festival for performance. I remember we had quite a few that year. So it was, diving in the deep end.
Interesting. The other day I saw a meme. Well, no, it was like a Facebook memory of Billy Strings. And it was like, hey, thinking about quitting my job and going full time in the music thing, wish me well, or something to that effect. And it was 10 years ago. And I thought, dude, you've done well. But he relives that memory every year on Facebook. And, I just see nothing but blue skies for you, man. The sky's the limit. You're a great ambassador for bluegrass, not just in Connecticut, but everywhere. And now, let me ask you, was the band Rock Hearts, were they signed with 615 Hideaway Records before you joined, or has that been since you joined?
That happened basically our first IBMA. That conversation and agreement happened and was made at that first trip that we made there when we were a showcase band. So they signed after I joined them.
Yeah, well,
shortly after.
See the good luck you brought them already.
It's been a great journey.
Hey,
Grateful
man,
to do
let me play another song. I had asked you what you'd like me to play and feature here on the show today. It's called Upon the Knoll. Set this thing up for me. I want our listeners to enjoy it.
Sure. This was recorded back in 2019 in another bluegrass and Americana kind of group that I play in here. It's with a bunch of people I went to college with. And this track in particular was a melody that I had written as a waltz and recorded probably a couple years before I brought it to the band. It was, an old voice memo just sitting around on my phone. And one day, as I kind of learned a little bit more about music, I returned to it and I arranged it in a way that had some really beautiful chords that kind of accompanied the waltz.
Nice.
And when I started playing with this band On the Trail, which is kind of our Connecticut-based Americana group, this song was a perfect match, and the guitarist and singer in that, who's also a songwriter, he came up with some lyrics for it and brought it to the band, and it was one of the first songs that we arranged as a group, and it's one that all three of us sing on, and it just really came to life with that group On the Trail. So I'm really happy. It was kind of a first print for us.
Excellent. Well, here we are with Upon the Knoll right here on the Grass Wagon Revival.
Song
on the Knoll. Wow, what a lovely song, Austin. Great job on that.
Thank you so much. You know, I'm really happy with the way that turned out, and getting to write more music and record more with that group is something I'm really excited about for this next season. We're in the studio almost every week. We're getting together when we can to keep developing that sound.
Well, you mentioned you went back and worked on the chord change and everything. Listen, man, can I just be a little nerdy here for a minute? Just me and you again. Brother, man, anytime you go from a 1 to a 1 major 7 to a 1 dominant 7 to a 4 to a 4 minor, then to a 2 major with a 4 sharp bass. I mean, let me tell you something. After this show, I think I'm going to play that song again and just chart it out for therapy.
That's very kind of you, man.
No,
we're kindred spirits here in our appreciation for this.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, and I mean, this is just the fact. You hear a lot of songs that are just poorly written. They are. I mean, not every song we hear on the radio is well written. In fact, many of the songs I write are not well written. That's why I try to not let you hear them until they're written better. You know what I'm saying?
Well, you have that sense for what could be, you know. I think that is a drive that people who are, you know, artistic and creative, they kind of struggle with that their whole lives. You can't turn it off, but it's also the reason why you can make really good art.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, before I let you go, we've talked about the Rock Hearts. I want to play, speaking of well-written songs, I want to play Today I Started Loving You Again by the Rock Hearts. But before I do that, let us know how people can stay in touch with you, get up with you, connect with you on social media. You're everywhere. Tell us your 411 here.
Sure. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook, but the majority of my work is actually through my own website, which is just my name, austinscelzo.com. Scelzo is spelled Scelzo, and that's just austinscelzo.com. It showcases the camps that I'm doing around the country in Asheville and Florida and New York and things like that, the tour dates and times that I'll be, you know, performing and teaching online and things like that. So I, you know, wear a lot of sort of different hats as many, you know, musicians in the bluegrass industry do nowadays, and the website is the best way that I've found to kind of put all my material up there, especially the educational side of things, which is something I'm very passionate about. There's a blog, you know, I have a blog on the website that posts a lot of my thoughts around education and things like that, and so the website would probably be the best place. I've got an email list and lots of things to peruse and look around with on there.
That's great. Speaking of wearing hats, if you could only wear one hat, which would it be? Would it be, this is kind of like that question, if you were on a deserted island, which instrument would you take? But would it be performer, teacher, writer? What would it be?
Well, I would say that question for me is sort of impossible to answer. I actually left public school teaching because I realized that if I had a family, you know, if I was in a real serious relationship or had kids or something, I wouldn't be able to balance being a full-time teacher and also performing. Something would have to give, you know? Yeah. And so I kind of left the school job because I wanted to create a lifestyle that would allow me to have all three. I wanted to teach, I wanted to perform, I wanted to write music. So I set out to create a lifestyle that would allow me to do all of that. And I think that teaching is something I'm both very excited about, but it's also a much more stable source of income. You know, when I put on these camps, they allow me to go to Nashville once a year to record more music and travel to different places and get to see different parts of the world and the country. You know, that was kind of another part of my goal. So I actually left public school for the main reason of being able to create, while I had the time and energy, you know, create that lifestyle where I could have it all per se, you know, just be able to balance all the different things that I do in my life.
Yeah,
that I'm passionate about.
That's great. But way back in the day, long before you were born, back in '84, I was enrolled at the University of Mississippi, and I'm an Ole Miss Rebel alum. But I was a vocal major, and so I sang in the opera program. I sang in the chorus. I played bass guitar in the jazz band. I played tuba in the marching band. And in the spring, I had to play string bass in the orchestra. Now, I was doing all these things to get as much scholarship money as I could. I had a full ride. But listen to this. And I know you've got to be better than my instructor, my string bass professor. She was a cellist, okay? So one day I dragged in, not 100%, if you know what I mean, been out all night. And she was really riding me pretty hard. And I said, you know what, maybe I was just like joking, maybe I should just give up bass and play violin. And she says, you can never play violin. I'm like, oh my God. She goes, your finger pads are too fat.
Oh.
Now, what kind of teacher would say that to a student?
Well, I have to say that it's really sad, but a large portion of the, especially the classical music world, I've seen that sort of behavior just because it's so hyper competitive, and there's a sense that there's only one way to do things.
Yeah.
And honestly, that story, which I've heard so many times from my students, especially adult students, who really struggle with getting back into music because they have that kind of replaying in their head.
Yeah.
It's a big part of what drives me to teach this communal music. Bluegrass music is something that's really for everybody. You can get into it, learn 2 chords.
Absolutely.
And on an instrument and start singing and participating in community in a way that many of these classical teachers struggle to see because they don't have a sense for there's like a world of music outside of the classical world. So honestly, your story is a big part of what drives my passion as an educator, in teaching this music.
Well, I'm glad I shared it for you. What's funny is I was a voice major, so I was also enrolled in a beginning violin class, which I was acing. And I looked at her and I said, joke's on you, lady. I have an A. I have an A in that class. Well, the next semester, she was my music history professor, and I can tell you without a doubt there was no way I was going to pass that class. So anyway, that's my introduction into classical violin at the collegiate level. Man, I've enjoyed talking with you. We can share a lot of stories. You're always welcome here on the Grass Wagon Revival. This is how do we say it? My house is your house.
Well, I've had such a wonderful time. You've been an amazing host. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, I try, and I promised everybody I would be on my best behavior today. I hope I didn't ask too many difficult questions.
Not at all, Deano.
Hey, speaking of that great song and that great band, I'll let you go here, but here's the Rock Hearts doing Today I Started Loving You Again. I'll talk to you later, Austin. Thanks so much.
All right, take care, Deano.
You be blessed.
Today I started loving you again. Now I'm right back to where I really have always been. I got over you just long enough to let my heartaches mend. Then today I started loving you again. What a fool I was to think I could get by with only these few million tears I cried. I should have known the worst was yet to come.
and the crying time for me had just begun. Today I started loving you again. Now I'm right back to where I really have always been. I got over you just long enough to let my heartaches mend. And today I started loving you again. Started loving you again. Now I'm right back to where I really have always been. I got over you just long enough to let my heartaches mend. Then today I started loving you again. Yesterday I started loving you again.
Welcome to the Grass Wagon Revival.